whoever raised the idea of maybe putting Tim and Lucy together, thank you. Hi, I'm Claudia, and The Rookie has quickly risen up the ranks to become one of my absolute favourite TV shows. I mean, it hasn't even been a year since I watched it for the first time, and already I love it so much. I watched it for the very first time back in April of 2024. I binge watched all 7 seasons that were out at that point in like a week. And since then I have rewatched the show twice, and now we're at the point where the next season has finally started airing. I'm filming this on the 8th of January, which means season 8 episode 1 like literally aired 2 days ago. Also, yes, I'm filming this video about The Rookie on the day 911 comes back from break, which does feel slightly sacrilegious, but I've talked about 911 enough. So we're talking about The Rookie today. Also, there will be spoilers for this video for the entirety of The Rookie up to and including season 8 episode 1. However, if you've not watched the first episode of season 8 yet, I will only be talking about that episode right at the end, so you can watch like most of the video without any fear of spoilers. And when I do start talking about season 8, I'll put a little disclaimer before it so you know when to skip. But anyway, The Rookie. Now, The Rookie has been on my radar for I'd say probably about 5 years now. As someone who watches a lot of emergency services, American procedurals, it's kind of hard not to know about it. Especially because like way back before like Disney Plus was a huge thing, most of the American procedurals in the UK aired on this channel called Sky Witness. And what Sky does is when you turn on the TV, there's like a homepage that like advertises a bunch of shows. And there'd always be like a section which was like new dramas on Sky Witness, and it'd be like all the American shows. So it's kind of hard not to know about like all of the American procedurals that ever exist. Now it's a bit different because most of them go onto streaming services rather than on Sky, but there are still a few that go on Sky, namely the One Chicago franchise and The Rookie. Although the first 4 seasons of The Rookie have just been added to Disney Plus, so I feel like it might be switching to Disney Plus in the near future. Anyway, all that to say, I knew about The Rookie for a while, and it was kind of always on my mental unofficial list of things I kind of wanted to watch, but it always kept getting shoved further down by something else that I wanted to watch more, mainly because I already knew the main guy. John Nolan, who is like the title character of The Rookie, is played by Nathan Fillion. I hope I'm saying his last name right, but I know him as Richard Castle in the show Castle. If you don't know what Castle is, it's a show from like the late 2000s and early 2010s, and it starred Nathan Fillion as like a crime and mystery author called Richard Castle, who teamed up with an NYPD detective to like solve crimes. And I love Castle. It's one of my favourite shows. However, once you get past like season 4, season 5, I kind of can't keep going. There's only so many ways they can do a murder in New York City, okay? And the first time I watched Castle, I got like pretty far through it. I think it's either like the end of season 6 or maybe like the start of season 7, I forget when, but it's whenever there's that wedding followed by the amnesia storyline, and I just like couldn't get on board with it. That's when I like dropped out of watching the show. But I do still occasionally rewatch the first few seasons, and I do enjoy them when I do. But I think because I'd already watched Castle, when I saw The Rookie, I was kind of like, oh, you know, I already know this guy. Like, it's another police show with the same actor. It can't be too different. I'm just gonna like not watch it, and it'll go down to the bottom of my list. And it kind of stayed down there as I prioritised rewatching other shows rather than watching The Rookie for the first time. Sometimes you just want to rewatch a show rather than watch something new. You need the comfort, okay? Until like this time last year in 2025, when I started seeing Rookie TikToks on my For You page. I think because there's a lot of crossover with like the Rookie fans and 911 fans, I was seeing some of their TikToks, but I was intrigued to say the least. And you know how on like TikTok and Instagram Reels, people upload like clips of episodes of these emergency services shows? Like, I've probably seen the same 10 Chicago Med episodes like hundreds of times just on like TikTok and Instagram. But I started seeing clips of The Rookie, and I was like, you know what, I'm actually kind of enjoying seeing this, so you know what, I'm gonna start watching it. And luckily for me, April of 2025 was like the perfect time for me to do that. My university is very weird in that we have a first term from September to December, and then we like break for Christmas, then we come back in January and we go all the way through until April. We don't stop in March or anything, but then April to September is just all summer. Technically there is a third term of teaching in there, but my course doesn't have a third term, so we just get like 5 months off for the summer. It's kind of insane. But that meant I was completely free to just sit and watch The Rookie, and I loved it. I went into it thinking, okay, if I make it past like season 5, then I'm doing pretty well, because how it normally goes with me and like police-based shows is I tend to drop out around seasons 5 to 7. Like Bones, I always stop watching about like season 5 or 6. Castle is about the same time. Criminal Minds, I get a bit further to season 7. Sometimes if I'm feeling brave, I go past the end of season 7. But like before I watched The Rookie, the only 2 like police-based shows that I'd watched in their entirety was Chicago PD, which is still ongoing and is my favourite show in the One Chicago franchise, but that's a topic for a different video. And then also Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I love Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I remember I started watching it just after season 5 released on Netflix in the UK, and then I continued watching it all the way to the end. I love that show so much, and I think what I love about it is it's so comedic, and I think I found that The Rookie is quite similar to Brooklyn Nine-Nine in that. Like, The Rookie is obviously like a drama, it's a procedural, but it's also very comedic in episodes that don't have like stressful storylines. And I found myself when I was watching it for the first time comparing it to Brooklyn Nine-Nine a lot. I mean, it's kind of hard not to. Like, they're both police-based shows, they both have cold opens, they both kind of have this like dynamic of like a family of characters, if that makes sense. The only difference is that Brooklyn Nine-Nine leans much more comedic than The Rookie does. Like, yes, The Rookie has hilarious episodes, but at the start and end of each season, it's like stressful, angsty storylines, whereas on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, even when they do the somewhat angsty storylines, there's still kind of an element of humour to it. Like, I can imagine any of the Rosalind Dyer storyline being on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, but I could imagine a lot of Brooklyn Nine-Nine being done on The Rookie, if that makes sense. But because I kept comparing it to Brooklyn Nine-Nine and I found it funny and I was like, oh, it's more of like a comedy drama than just a drama, I found myself enjoying it a lot. If you've watched any of my 911 videos, I've probably said in them that the kind of like silly, funny, jokey filler episodes are some of my absolute favourites. Like the treasure hunt episode and the Jinx episode and all those kind of ones. And what The Rookie does really well is they do a lot of comedic episodes in between the really angsty ones. And when I was watching The Rookie for the first time, I found that they were doing so many more of these episodes and I was like, oh my god, I love this. And as I carried on through the seasons, I found myself loving those comedic episodes just more and more and more and more. And even though I've said all that, I do still love the more serious, angsty episodes. Like, yes, they do make me want to scream and cry sometimes, but I still love them. And so when I got to the most recent episode for the first time, I was like, oh my god, I actually fell in love with this show. I did not expect that. I thought I wouldn't like it, but I actually absolutely love it. And at this point, I'm like slightly delving into The Rookie TikTok, so I'm like firmly in the fandom at this point. Like, this show, it doesn't take up as much of my mind as 911 does, but it's there, okay? And something I realised in like the last few months when the new seasons of 911 and Grey's Anatomy started up is I appreciate how in The Rookie, they're not afraid to show us just couples being happy for multiple seasons. Like, thinking about Grey's Anatomy, it's a running joke that everyone on that show has slept with each other at some point. Like, sometimes on TikTok, I'll see a clip of a Grey's Anatomy episode and I'll be like, oh my god, I forgot you two were together for like 3 episodes in season 12 or something. Whereas on The Rookie, you have like a lot of established relationships that yes have struggles, but they don't break up. Like Angela and Wesley, like they've been together and strong since like season 2 or something. Nyla and James have been together for like a bunch of seasons, even though they have like a few issues in season 7, but they work through them. Lieutenant Grey and his wife have been just like a constant background relationship. So we have all these established relationships on The Rookie, which means we don't see as many breakups as we do in other shows. Like obviously John, the main character, he has like a few girlfriends in the earlier seasons before he meets Bailey. Like he has that girlfriend who's in Homeland Security, but that doesn't last particularly long. And then there's the doctor, but she doesn't last that long either. And I think that's it. Oh, and he's dating Lucy for like the first part of season 1. And every time I watch that, I'm like, why did they choose to do that? It doesn't make sense, but you know. But with his breakups, we don't really get to see enough of like his girlfriend to really like fall in love with them as characters, if that makes sense. Like the one who's with Homeland Security, I forget her name. Is her name Jessica? I don't remember. But she's like canonically all over the country, so she's not in like every single episode. So we don't really get a chance to like really get to know her character and fall in love with her character before she's like been broken up with and we're done, you know? Grace we get a bit more because she's a doctor at the hospital and they're like always at the hospital, but we don't see her enough to like really feel anything too bad when the two of them break up. Like, you know, it's still sad, but it's nothing compared to like when two beloved characters break up, you know what I mean? There's also like a couple of other short relationships, like Lucy dates Emmett is his name, the firefighter. I always forget his name. All I remember is he breaks up with her by text, and for that reason I don't like him. So Tim also dates Lucy's friend Rachel, and then they break up, but it's like breaking up because she has to move to New York and they don't want to do long distance. It's not like one of them cheated on the other type of thing. And also I don't know why, but I couldn't get invested in Tim and Rachel's relationship because even the first time I watched it, I knew Chenford was coming and I was like, no, I know they're gonna break up, so I'm just not gonna get super invested, if that makes sense. We have like other short relationships, like one of the new rookies, Miles Penn, he comes into the show with a girlfriend that he then breaks up with pretty soon into his time on the show. But that's kind of part of his character arc and realizing that he's like changing, now he lives in LA rather than Texas. So like, I wasn't invested in their relationship at all. We see his girlfriend for like 2 episodes, okay? And the only other like short relationship I can think of, and it's only short because we haven't seen it for that long, is Selena and Rog. When this happened, I did not know this was happening. This is one of the few things when I watched it for the first time I hadn't been spoiled on. My face. Like, the first time we are introduced to him as Selena's boyfriend, she's like taking John and Bailey along to one of his concerts or whatever, and John's like, oh, I recognize him from somewhere, and I'm like, oh god, he's gonna have to arrest Selena's boyfriend, and it's gonna be like a short-term thing, and this is gonna be like a cold open and nothing serious kind of vibe. And then he started singing, and I recognized his voice then, and I was like, oh my god, they're doing this. They're putting the singer guy with one of the main characters to keep him in the show. I was floored. But obviously, because they only got together in like season 7, we haven't seen much of them together yet. But what I have seen, I have really enjoyed. I think they're really cute together. However, I do think they might break the two of them up so Selena can date Miles. But we'll deal with that when we get there, okay? If we get there, I should say. It might not happen. I'm kind of hoping it doesn't happen because I want to keep Rog in the show. Now, you may have noticed I've conveniently been omitting a few relationships in the show, and that is namely Lucy and Chris, Tim and Ashley, and of course, Tim and Lucy, Chenford. As I previously said, I knew Chenford was going to happen. I had seen the clips of it, so I knew that Chris and Ashley weren't going to last long. They did, however, last longer than I thought they would. Like, if I was Lucy and I heard Chris singing Dream a Little Dream of Me casually, I would have dumped him on the spot. She's a better woman than I am, I guess. And Ashley, like, she was all right, but I was never super invested in her relationship in Tim, again, because I knew that Chenford was going to happen, so I knew, like, their relationship wasn't endgame or anything. And the way they introduced Chris and Ashley, I don't think really, like, set up for a like long-term relationship. Now, off the top of my head, when they introduced Chris, him and Lucy are like arguing about a case, and I think when they did that, they were trying to like recreate what they had when Wesley was introduced and when he started dating Angela, but it just didn't work as well as it did the first time. It didn't quite land right, I don't think. Like, I didn't mind Chris's character until he sang Dream a Little Dream of Me, and then I wanted him to go, and I didn't mind Ashley's character either, but I think pretty soon into like season 4, I knew Chenford had to happen soon. Like, they were dropping little hints, you know? I only, like, relatively recently found out that Lucy and Tim weren't a planned couple from the start of the show. Because, like, yes, they only get together in season 5, but I've watched other shows where you've known the two main characters are going to get together from episode 1 and they haven't got together till season 5. And I don't know if it was, like, the fan response and the fans started shipping Tim and Lucy, or the writers kind of saw it and went, actually, we're going to take it this way. But whoever raised the idea of maybe putting Tim and Lucy together, thank you. Because I knew it was coming, and even in like the first couple of seasons, I couldn't really see it. I could see how they would do it in the future, but I didn't know how they were going to get there. But then the more the show went on, I was like, oh, okay, they're really ramping up for this now, I can tell. And I have to admit, I do love the undercover operation with the doppelgangers. It's hilarious to me, I'm sorry. It reminds me a lot of when in Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Jake and Amy are doing that undercover thing and they keep having to kiss to stop them from looking suspicious. It reminds me of that a lot. Like, Tim and Lucy having to act like a couple on this undercover operation, even though they both have feelings for each other, but they're not saying anything about it. Iconic. And like the practice kissing in Lucy's apartment, I watched that for the first time and I was like, did they steal this idea from a fanfiction or something? I swear I've read this for like another ship at some point. And then obviously at the start of season 5, you have them actually doing the undercover operation, and then they get back to Lucy's apartment and she's like, do you want to come in to Tim? And he's like, I shouldn't, but then he does anyway, even though they're both dating someone else. And I was like, oh my god, I'm so excited to see how they do this. And then Chris is just dying on the couch. Like, he ruined a perfectly good moment for Chenford. Can he be more considerate of where he's bleeding out, please? And then you have Tim breaking up with Ashley, and then he has that conversation with Lucy in like the car park, where he's like, do you want to go for dinner with me? And she says yes, and then she has to say no. And Lucy's like, yeah, I have to be the good person and like go and break up with Chris. And Tim's like, I get that. But I would have preferred for them to just break up with Chris off screen because I didn't need to see him anymore. Chris had served his purpose and he could leave. I mean, if you're wondering what Chris's purpose was, it was to get Lucy and Tim together. I don't know if they planned that from the start, but in my head, that's what he was there for. And that scene where Lucy's practicing breaking up with Chris and like Aaron's playing Chris and he starts crying. Hilarious. I love it so much. And then there's Lucy and Tim's first date, which doesn't go well, so then you have their second first date, which goes way better. And from there, I love everything to do with Chenford. I do wish we got a scene of them telling everyone that they were together rather than it just being like implied that everyone knows now kind of thing. Also, at some point, I desperately want someone to bring up that John and Lucy were together because I just think Tim's reaction would be hilarious. And then Tim takes a desk job, so he'll be out of Lucy's chain of command, and I think they played that so perfectly because they could have done a whole number of things when they were like, okay, she's gonna date her boss. Like in Grey's Anatomy, they do that several times and don't address it, but I like that they actually address it by having Tim change jobs. And then I did enjoy Lucy doing the 5-player trade to get Tim the job he actually wants. And then we get to the Chenford breakup, which is what this whole long talk has been accumulating to. I've now realised I've been talking about Chenford for a while without getting to the point, which the point is the breakup. But Tim and Lucy's breakup devastated me, okay? At the time, I was so mad, but now with like a retrospective kind of view, I think it kind of made sense. Like, we all know Tim was a bit messed up, okay? He needed to go to therapy, and I don't think that was going to happen while he was still with Lucy. There needed to be something which made him think, oh god, I need to go to therapy, and breaking up with Lucy was that thing, and I think that does make sense for his character. However much it hurt to see them break up, I think it did make sense. I don't know why we had to have it happen that way though. Like, why did we have to have Tim lie to Lucy for like a whole episode? Like, I was getting flashbacks to Chicago PD and they were not good. I do wish Chenford got back together sooner, but I understand why they did it the way they did, because they were like, if we have Lucy become a sergeant first, that means we don't have to deal with the whole one of them has to switch jobs thing. And Tim's speech at the end of season 7, I got so excited. And then they cut to Lucy being asleep and I was like, oh no. I was like, I'm gonna have to wait months for this to be resolved. I was not happy. I don't know if we knew at that point, but I think it was pretty soon afterwards we found out that The Rookie was only coming back in January, and it's not like the other shows that start in like the autumn and then get a mid-season break. It just comes back in January and then doesn't really have a mid-season break. And part of me likes it doesn't have a break in the middle, because the 911 break has been trying, to say the least, but also that means I have to wait longer for the season to start, which I don't love. But even with that being like the ending I was left with the first time I watched it, I was like, I am so excited for the next season of the show. And not just for Chenford. Yeah, Chenford is like my main thing. I also love all of the other characters on the show and their storylines. Like, we have the whole like family antic stuff going on with like Andrew and Wesley and their kids, and James and Nyla and their kids. And I like Selena and Miles, and like how we're seeing the younger generation come up the way we saw like Lucy and John and Jackson come up in the first few seasons. But on top of loving like all of the main characters, I also love all of the like recurring characters. Specifically, I'm going to be talking about the enemies. Some of them I loved just because of how creepy they are, namely like Rosalind. And then there was Bailey's ex-husband Jason, who was like kind of stalking her and trying to kill her, and I did love the kind of tension that came with that. But what I really love are the kind of comedic enemies, if that makes sense, namely Monica and Oscar. Monica I love because she's just kind of iconic. She is ruthless, and I love her for it. She will do anything to get her out of any situation, and she's an icon for it. She also always has like the most sophisticated outfit on, and I'm like, you give like evil supervillain vibes, but also I kind of love you for it. Like, obviously she is evil, but I still think any episode with her is pretty good, because they're all like, we don't trust you, and she's like, why not? And she's always got like an ulterior motive, and I just enjoy seeing her and what she brings to the story. And then Oscar I love for different reasons. Every Oscar episode that I can think of, at least, is funny. Like, hands down funny. Oscar himself, a very evil guy, don't particularly enjoy him, but he brings an element of comedy that I do love. Like, he's always trying to escape. They always have to like drive him around somewhere. He's hilarious, and I kind of love him for that. And like, what the writers could have done is like really lean into him being like evil and like kind of creepy and that kind of thing, but I love that they made him slightly more comedic, because it means the episodes with him, even though there's a lot of tension and stuff, it can still be funny, you know? The episodes with Oscar remind me a lot of the episodes of Brooklyn Nine-Nine with Jake's cellmate from when he's in prison, the cannibal. They both kind of have this guy's evil energy, but also they're hilariously funny, and I love that for them. Apart from the last Oscar episode, I think, is the one where he almost kills John. Didn't love that one, but he has escaped from prison, so I'm assuming we're going to be seeing him in this next season. Now, this is the point where I'm going to start talking about season 8, so if you have not seen season 8 of The Rookie yet, skip to this time code on the screen right now. But as I said at the start of this video, season 8 episode 1 just aired 2 days ago, and it's such a good episode, I have to say. I was not expecting them to bring Chenford back in episode 1. I thought we'd have to wait probably till like episode 3, episode 4, but I am so happy they did it in episode 1, because it means I don't have to wait anymore. Only a season and a half of waiting, and they're back together, and I'm so happy for them. And they've moved in together, and oh my god, I thought when they got back together, Tim like wouldn't ask her to move in yet, because they were like still working things out in their relationship or whatever. I thought Tim was gonna like lose his confidence a bit and not ask her to move in, basically. But then we got like the trailer, and Tim's asking her to move in, and I'm like, oh my god, what if she says no? And then I was like, okay, maybe they get back together, but Lucy says no to moving in yet. But then she said yes, and I was like, thank God. The two of them are going to be living together, and it's going to be so cute, and they're going to have Kojo, and I might just die. And this time, they should, hopefully, be together for, like, the long term, and they're not going to break up again. I hope. Touch wood. Obviously, they're both sergeants now, so there's no issues with, like, chain of command stuff. But with Lieutenant Grey taking the, like, job offer from the FBI, it's, like, kind of implied, because, like, the FBI guy asked, like, who's going to do your job? And then they immediately cut to Tim and Lucy. Tim and Lucy in bed together, which I screamed at, but we're not going to go into that. But that, at least to me, implies that Tim's going to take over as watch commander, which then means his current job is free for Lucy to move into, which moves her off the night shift, which will be good because I don't want the two of them on opposite shifts because that's going to cause tension. So I'd really like for Lucy to then move into Tim's current job. Tim moves into Gray's job, and then Gray's doing this whole FBI thing. I am not as happy about the fact that Lieutenant Grey and Luna are like having issues in their marriage, because I thought we were leaving the marital issues in season 7, but they're back again. It's like we had Angela and Wesley having marital issues, and then the next time it was like John and Bailey having marital issues, and then we had Nyla and James having marital issues. At this point they've only got one married couple left, and it's Lieutenant Grey and his wife. Do I think they'll get a divorce? Potentially. We've only seen one episode, so we haven't seen where they're going to take it yet. I hope they don't, but I think they might do that. I could see them doing that. What makes me worried is that then we have no married couples left who have like marital issues, which means we then shift to non-married couples, which would be Tim and Lucy. We're done with issues with Tim and Lucy. Just let them be happy, please. My dream is like the finale of season 8. Tim proposes to Lucy. I would die. I can see them doing it as well, because even though they've had this massive gap in their relationship, they seem to be picking up where Tim and Lucy left off. Like, Lucy's moved in with Tim, and they haven't even had like another date yet. Like, part of me thought maybe they'd go like, oh, they're gonna go slowly for a bit, like kind of get into the swing of dating each other, but no, they're just going straight back into it, which means potential proposal by the end of the season. But other storylines, I have absolutely no idea. I mean, Oscar's probably gonna come back. We definitely haven't seen the last of Monica. They'll probably introduce a new antagonist at some point, because they always do. I don't know if we've seen the last of Seth Ridley yet. I haven't talked about him much, mainly because he's only there for a season, but like, he might come back, he might not, we'll see. I don't follow like behind the scenes news for The Rookie as closely as I do for 911, so I don't know if like anyone's been seen on set or anything. Although I have seen in an interview, apparently we're getting introduced to Tim's mum this season, which I am very excited to see. That'll probably bring up some trauma for Tim, and we'll see how he copes with it this time now that he's like a new, less toxic version of Tim. But that's all I have to say about The Rookie for now. I will probably make another video on The Rookie sometime in the future. Don't know when, but I'm saying it will probably happen. I love this show so much, and I think there's not too many ways they could ruin that for me. Like, not like with 911, which is if they don't do Buddy, I might have a lobotomy, but you know, we're not going there right now. Obviously it hasn't been renewed yet for another season, but I really hope it does. It probably will, but I really hope it does get another season. I want to see Tim and Lucy in like happy domestic bliss, okay? I know I have to do the kind of awkward and kind of cringy YouTuber thing and say, if you like the video, please consider leaving a like on it or maybe subscribing. I post a bunch of fandom / fanfiction related videos just like this one, so if you like this kind of stuff, you'll probably like some of my other videos. There'll also be links in the description to my Twitter and TikTok if you want to follow me over there. And I post new fanfiction related TikToks literally every single day, so if you feel like that's something you'd enjoy, feel free to follow me over there. And also, if you're still here, this is my first video of 2026, so Happy New Year! So yeah, I've been Claudia, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll hopefully see you all soon. Bye! Arrest me, but make it sexy.